Welcome to Business Influencers. Hope everyone is having a great week. Again, we are so excited again to see the show continue to rise in numbers. Thanks to you. Again, we are committed each and every week to bringing subject matter experts to help raise your level of business influence to the next level. We'd like to thank all of you again for sharing the show and really being a part of the success it's been over the last almost 2 years now. It's hard to believe it's been almost 2 years. But again, we have so much gratitude for all of you. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or would like to provide any insight to types of content that help can move your business and personal success in terms of influence to the next level. Today's show is being brought to you today by Biz Explosion Conferences. They put on the Achieve Biz Explosion conferences around the country. Latest one they did was out in Denver. Again, we highly encourage you to check out this group. They bring in some really sharp entrepreneurs from around the world, helping you to take your business to the next level. Great people, a great place to collaborate and do business. I've been there personally, have generated business from it, and met some of the greatest people in terms of doing business with. Feel free to check them out at achievebizconferences.com. That's achievebizconferences.com. We got a great show for you today. I am looking forward to this. Here at Business Influencers, we always love to have insights in terms of how we can now not only manage, but grow our finances, increase our net worth. And we have a gentleman here that he is really, really sharp, great personality. I happen to be, talk to him, and he is just on the ball. You're going to love him. We're going to be talking about capitalize, CAP, those are capped. Capitalize your finances the right way. And we're going to be here with Christopher Panagiotu. If I pronounced it right, sometimes my name, I'm not great with the names and pronouncing. That's okay. But Chris is a proud father, a husband, author, podcast host, business owner, certified financial planner, professional. He was born for the life of guiding others to true financial success. What I love about Chris, he's been into this since he was a kid. Yes, I'm not kidding. A kid. You'll hear all about it. He was introduced to investing at the tender age of 10. Fast forward to 18, he accepted an internship at one of the largest wirehouse firms in the world, UBS. After 3 quick years of college at the University of Oregon, something that was not sitting right with him, he joined Morgan Stanley for a short stint when he quickly realized corporate life was not his wheelhouse. He was been extremely blessed to have discovered Lucia Capital Group, and in 2015, he began his journey to grow what is now the business Capitalize Your Finances, LLC, in his nearly 7 years at Lucia Capital Group. Chris has built a practice from scratch, going from zero to nearly 100 million in that time span. So Chris runs his financial planning practice, again, Capitalize Your Finances, LLC. He's based in Washington. And you're going to get to know a little bit more about Chris later as well, where you can get in contact with him. And without further ado, Chris, we welcome you to the show.
Yes, Chris, thank you for having me. First off, it's great to talk to a fellow Chris. You're representing the name proudly. Second, the last name is Panagiotu. I know
Panagiotu. There you go. Now I got it. Now Panagiotu.
It's a tough one. Once you get it, though, you're never going to forget it. And I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share my story, my business podcast, my book, my brand, whatever you want to ask me. I am here for it.
Well, Chris, we are so excited. Well, first of all, I know you had a mission. You've been, this is like kind of like born in your blood. Give a foundation of like why you got into the area of finance and what compelled you even from a young age to pursue this career.
So I grew up in a financially literate family. However, I didn't have any knowledge per se of what I would say is truly capitalizing one's finances. I understood the world of investing, like you said, at an early age. I read The Intelligent Investor when I was 10. For those of you that do not know, The Intelligent Investor was the book written by Ben Graham, who was Warren Buffett's teacher. And that is considered the Bible of investing. And contrary to popular belief, I understood hardly any of it, but I got just enough to become deadly. And that's what started my journey into the world of investing. and planning. And I didn't even know really what a planner was until, frankly, I started at the previous firm before I started Capitalize Your Finances. And I knew what a certified financial planner was. I went and got the designations. In the world of advising, that's kind of a dying art. I mean, if you don't have a financial advisor, a financial planner, I would either go with that or just try to figure it out on your own. And the thing that catapulted really the podcast, in the book, in the movement, we're coming out with courses later this year, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
Is I got to this point where I realized, and I'm kind of fast forwarding my career here, so if you want me to go back, I can totally do it.
Sure, yeah, go ahead and share.
I'm in 2020. If 2020 was not the year 2020, if you know what I mean, that was the year that the business really was going to take off, because people started to see the framework really work for what I've said it's supposed to do, but we hadn't really been tested with it. And then 2022, it absolutely catapulted. And so I was getting to this point, and I saw that coming down the pike, where I'm going, gosh, I can't help everyone. And that kills me, because I can't, I'm one guy. My assistant Betty is one gal. I mean, we're two people. I'm not really in the mood to bring on other employees, just because, let's face it, like, I've got a 3-month-old at home, which is why I'm out of my suit and my gear right now, because we had a little spit up incident. So I apologize. And so I'm trying to grow it as lean and mean as possible. But the whole world of podcasting that God blessed me with in 2020, in 2021, really, and beyond, that's what got me to think about, okay, you've got the business, which, like you said, and as of right now, we oversee about $135 million. And we're on track. And again, I'm 31. So my goal is, by the time I'm 40, to oversee $1 billion. I have no doubt we're going to get there. That has become extremely selective with clients and bringing them on. Like, we only work with accredited investors, all that good stuff. But then the brand, I've looked at it going, oh my gosh, like, there's so many people that want to get to that point, but they have no framework. They weren't born into the knowledge. They weren't born into money. They weren't maybe born into a circumstance where they could even have a platform. And what's cool about podcasting is you can, for better or worse, work for free and give people some amazing content. And it's really philanthropic. And what's cool is, over time, and I'm sure your listeners are familiar with the J curve, right? You work for nothing, work for nothing, break even, you take off. The podcast world is no different. But the difference is you give all of this goodwill, which, not to get into investing terms, but like, that is one of the most abstract yet critically important pieces that one can look at when they're analyzing a business. But in personal life, it's the same thing. Once that goodwill starts to really compound, then what happens is the money just starts to kind of claw on. But by the time you get there, you're so ingrained with the love of the process that the money doesn't really matter. And I'm not doing the show for the money. I'm not doing the book or any of that. Like, I've had an amazing life leading up to that point. I'm doing it because I want to help a lot more people. And so with Capitalizing Your Finances, it's the brand in the book and the show. It's all about strategy first, because investments will come and go. And once you layer all of that in, not to plug myself too hard, and I'll give myself some moments to breathe, just because now I'm rambling a bit. There will be no doubt in anyone's mind after they read the book or they listen to the show on what they need to do financially. So that's why I do it.
Well, that's fabulous. And now that, you provide, again, you go really a step beyond most financial advisors, strategists, planners, and of course, even certified. You really you really see the bigger picture of what's really important to the person, not just, hey, the finances itself. It's what the finances can really do for them. and
Sure.
help them to achieve the things that are important in their life. Share with us a little bit about the capitalizer or capitalize concept and how you go about when you work with somebody and helping them to map out a strategy for their financial future.
Yes. So I guess I should take a step back, because a lot of people that don't know me, they're like, okay, CAP, like what's the whole deal? So for those that listen into my show and follow my brand and all of that, being Christopher Panagiotu, the cap and capitalize.
Oh, there you go. You got
Yeah.
you got your initials.
Yes. Okay. I teach people across the country how to capitalize on their retirement and money in general. But diving deeper into what that's all about. And I've had imposter syndrome with myself for years. I'm just starting to break through with that, because isn't it interesting? If you don't promote yourself, you're known as kind of like a chicken, a pansy, a wuss, and you'll never succeed. But then if you do stick yourself out there, then you're considered arrogant, egotistical. Like, it's very interesting. And then you get to a point where you just don't care. And I'm there. And so for capitalizing, not only on a financial side, but just like everything in life, it's who I am. So when you capitalize something, even forget the slogan, you're on top of it. You get it. And not only do you get it, you friggin' own it. Like, there's no way that anyone else can take that away from you. And for me, that's kind of how I've lived my life. I mean, the first couple chapters in my book on how I became a capitalizer and who I am. I was never the fastest, strongest, smartest, quickest, agile. I was never the most anything, but I've always been ruthlessly obsessed with becoming a little bit better. And I've always had that burning desire. So for me, it's interesting. A lot of people don't know this about me. They just know me from the financial side and the show. I learned a lot of the work ethic in how I tackle things financially from my life in health and fitness. So I've had Crohn's my whole life. My sophomore year in high school, I remember I basically said, screw it, I'm either going to die or I'm going to get healthy. And I'm still alive. So that ended well. And then I switched to powerlifting in college. Then I transitioned to drug-free bodybuilding. Unfortunately, I can't compete anymore just due to some hormonal issues. However, that discipline, in that framework, in that comprehensive understanding of how the body works and how health works, like I've been in remission for 10 years. And that's because I became uberly obsessed with the health and fitness side of my life. So then when I transitioned into Lucia Capital Group, which is now I spun off and created Capitalize Your Finances, I said, oh, I'll take that same mental framework and I'll apply it to finance in my business.
The discipline, yeah.
Right? But it's obsessive discipline. Like, you really can't fear death, which I don't. I don't fear death in the absolute sense. I'm a man of faith. I don't fear death in the sense of business because I've been there. August 2017, I had $11.14 to my name because I reinvested every stinking thing I could into my process. I did it with my health. I've done it with relationships. Like it is what it is. That's what capitalizing really one's life is.
Well, you're investing in yourself. You're your greatest asset.
You are your greatest asset. And so for when people come into our office, and going back to your original question, just because I wanted to set the stage, I'm not a corporate guy. So I learned a lot of what not to do when I was at these bigger firms. And there's a really famous quote by Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner. And it goes a little something like this. Tell me where I will die so I don't go there. And it's the whole concept of you just focus on avoiding the not to do's. And by definition, you cannot help but by being successful. So for example, a lot of people in our industry, they like to ask about risk tolerance. Okay. I'm not saying understanding risk isn't important. Well, I don't really bring it up. Why? According to the Dalbar study, that's always backed by some of the largest institutions in the world, that is one of the worst questions you can ask, because then you're investing based on emotion, not on prudent processes in place. So being the semi-articulate fellow that I am, I'm like, done. Okay, that's one less thing I got to worry about. Out the picture. And then you have people that felt really stuffy and almost sticky when they go in and out of these advising groups, and they just know they're going to be sold something and all that stuff, because a lot of these groups get paid based on how much they oversee. So I'm like, okay, well, just don't do that. I mean, there are certain things you can't unwind. Like, of course, we get paid for managing money. Of course, we get paid for insurance because we have our own division. But one thing that was inspired by me was a lot of our business partners. Like, if you have a CPA, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are very successful in business, and if they don't have a CPA, God help them. But if they do, they know when they walk in the door, it doesn't matter if you hardly have a pot to piss in or you've got this magnificent portfolio. There's a flat cost to get in the door. But if you've got an LLC, there's a separate cost. If you have a trust, separate cost. If you have all these K1s, separate costs. So I restructured my business that way. And that was another layer. So number one, don't be stuffy. Don't be a dick. Number two, when people come in, be very transparent of how you charge. Very crazy. I tripled down on it. I put it on my website. There's no way people can go, man, like, Chris didn't explain that. And he explained it like in common sense terms. One thing I saw at the bigger firms, these plans were like 80 pages. No one read them. Ever. Okay?
I've never heard anybody read something like, let alone they don't even read their benefits program that they get when they get onboarded at a company, let alone the employee manual.
Yeah. And so for me, one thing that early in my career, I have not told this story in a while, that inspired me to really lean out my process. There was a local business owner and husband and wife, they clean carpets. And you think very mundane. And I remember I went to their office and it's just the two of them. They had a couple IKEA desks. And granted, this was in 2015 or 16. They were still on Windows 97. And then I remember, I think they had like 3 staff. And there was a stack of paper with a box of crayons next to the husband who found it. And like halfway through this meeting, I'm like, what in the world's going on? Because I know they don't have kids. So I'm like, that's kind of odd. So I ask, I'm like, what's the deal with this stuff? And he pauses and he looks at me and he goes, well, I never really got past the 3rd grade. So I'm educationally missing a few. And I know I'm not that swift with it. And I know that from a business standpoint, I'm very open to criticism and I'm very open to understanding that I need to change, which I was laughing because he's still on Windows 97 like 20 years later. But his thing was, and this hit me, he goes, if myself, my wife, or my 3 employees can't explain a change that they think is important with a crayon and a piece of paper, I will never go through with it. Now, he never became a client, which totally fine. It's neither here nor there. But that quote hit me so hard in the teeth, because you got to understand, you go to those bigger firms and even some of these small ones, they throw out all this crap and no one knows what the hell is going on. They use all this technology, Monte Carlo simulators, which are garbage, by the way, and then they spit it all out. And so in this world, we're constantly becoming obsessive with all this tech that's being thrown out at us. Now, I'm not anti-technology. Of course, we use technology, but I'm like, okay, I need to get to that equivalent with a financial planning process. And there wasn't anything out there, which is why I created Capitalize Your Finances, the book, the podcast, and the business, and soon to be the courses. So that's a little side story for you.
That's awesome. I love the synergy, what you're doing there. And so, I mean, you did a great job of, talking about the backstory and, what really sets yourself apart and helping clients. What do you feel people are looking for going forward, Chris, when it comes to, people helping them with their finances? Where do I mean, what's the future going to look like in terms of how they take this information, take what they learn from their financial planner, and then move forward to achieve their goals?
Yeah. Are you asking more of a industry?
It can be more of an industry, and then again, from the way you see
and then
it,
personal.
what you're doing.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a great question. So industry wise, rewind a little bit. So I was hardly a thought when this was occurring. You probably remember back in the day, there were no planners really, and there weren't really even advisors. There were stockbrokers, and you would call, you would dial for dollars, trade. In fact, when I was interning, I still remember that a little bit, but it was phasing out. So now you fast forward, and it was this world of financial advice, this comprehensive financial advice. That's what they told you, which was kind of crap, but like it stuck for a long time. And then financial planning became the thing. And now the industry is becoming much more aware of the professionalism, like an attorney or a CPA. Like you have to have a board, you have to have the accreditation, which we've got all of that. I think they're a little ways away just because it's still relatively new.
Yeah, it's not that everybody's like a certified financial planner.
Yeah, they should be if they're going to get into this, but it's neither here nor there. And so industry wise, my humble opinion, financial advising. Why do you need a financial advisor? Google it. I mean, you're a Google search away from becoming useless. Financial planning, that's a lot more comprehensive because you got to understand tax law. You got to understand the processes. You got to have a framework in place because strategically it will stay the same, but then tactically within each part of the strategy with times changing, that's where you just retweak the strategy. You retweak the framework a little bit. Now, individually, like for clients specifically, that's an interesting one. So I think that, granted, and for those that aren't aware of what an accredited investor is, if you're single, you make over $200,000 a year. If you're married, $300,000 a year, and or you're worth $1 million or more. Okay, excluding your house. Never include your house in net worth. Doesn't count until you move. A home's a home. So those people, by definition, they can do it on their own for sure, but life gets a lot more complex. Okay. Like for example, we're meeting with someone in a couple of weeks. They're selling their business for $35 million. I'm going to tell you right now, that is going to take a little bit longer than me just whipping something out on the back of a napkin. I could, but it'd be a really big napkin. I think a lot of these people, like coming out of school, they are desperate to have that planning knowledge. And I think a lot of these planners, what they're going to need to do is they're probably going to need to start billing by the hour, but they're not going to want to do that. So I think for a lot of these people, what they are demanding, and this is just from my listeners, so this may just be me and my little capitalized bubble of a world, but they want that course and they want a something like a one-timer. They can buy it. Sure, they can get the book, but they want something comprehensive with modules where they can go through it on their own because they want to get to that accredited position to offload it to someone like me. And I think that's where the industry is heading, where you're going to see this fat gap. And you're seeing a lot of these planners just die off because they're all old. But then the ones that like 2022, as Warren Buffett has mentioned, right? When the tide goes out, you quickly realize who's swimming naked. You've quickly realized there are a lot of these advisors and planners. They don't know what the hell's going on. Okay. I was confidently clothed after 2022 when the tide went out. And so I can tell you that, thinking as far ahead as I can, what I'm doing is I'm utilizing my practice and the blessing that I have. And I'm always reinvesting into myself in every way. And that's what I think a lot of people are looking for. They're not looking for a TikTok superstar. They're not looking for some influencer that just happens to be really attractive, that kind of knows what's going on. They want someone that is obsessively dedicated to the craft. Yeah. And I think those are few and far between.
Wow, that's fabulous. I love what you're sharing, and we definitely want to have the listeners get to know you. We're getting close to the end of the show, but I wanted to see if you could, leave the audience and those listening later what would be some, I know you have a lot of advice, but what would be really in a short, brief statement, some words of wisdom and advice you can leave the audience in terms when it comes to their finances?
So one off the top of my head, if an advisor or a planner, and again, really a financial planner, asks you, how do you feel about investing? I would look for another planner, because you should not go about your finances with the thought of being aggressive or conservative. You should go about understanding your money with the idea of, I'm going to be prudent. I'm going to be obsessive with the nitty-gritty details. I'm going to understand the field goal analogy, right? Like each post, one is science, one is art. You want to go right up the middle. You don't want to sway into the emotional side of things. That's my biggest piece of advice.
That's fabulous advice.
And focus on prudency.
That is excellent. Excellent. And absolutely, we'd love to, have you share more on a future show with us.
Sure.
So Chris, what is the best way that people can get to know you? Anything that you like to offer them, in terms of them getting in touch with you?
Absolutely. So the easiest way to learn more about me is by subscribing to our podcast on Spotify. If you go to Spotify and type in Capitalize Your Finances, you're going to see me there. If you go to Amazon and you want to understand the framework that I've given out, of course, for $20, technically $19.99, but we're rounding up here. Snag a copy of the book, Capitalize Your Finances. Of course, give it a 5-star. Let me know how you like it. No pressure if you don't. I'm just going to have to figure out how to pay for my 3-month-old's college another way. And then for those of you that are looking for a planner, and again, I'm really not advertising this on the business side of things, but if you are in that accredited state of mind and you are thinking to yourself, okay, what would my capitalized financial life look like? You could head on over to capitalizeyourfinances.com. You can submit an inquiry. You can give us a call, shoot us an email, and who knows? You may have the cap and capitalize in your life.
Love it. Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're a busy dad, a busy husband, and you're busy with clients. Thank you for your words of wisdom. I really love what you shared and all the things that you're doing, differently in a way to really best serve people to the next level, educating them through the podcast, also soon to be your online course. We highly encourage all of you to reach out to Chris, get to know him. When his online program is available, get that program. Subscribe to his podcast. There's a wealth of information there. Again, Chris, thank you so much for your time.
I loved it, and I will be back anytime you need me, man.
All right. We would count on that. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Business Influencers. Again, if there is any ideas that come to mind that you would like to see here on a future episode of Business Influencers, reach out to us at chris@christophersalem.com. We'd be more than happy to take your information, and our team will investigate that subject matter and look into the experts that are out there that can help fulfill the things that are going to help move you and your level of influence to the next level. So then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.